I never thought a single text message would destroy my entire marriage. But there I was, watching my husband's face turn pale as he stared at my phone screen, and I knew that everything I'd built over the past 8 years was about to crumble. It was a Tuesday evening in November when my world fell apart. I was in the kitchen, making dinner, humming along to some random song on the radio. My husband Jake was sprawled on the couch, scrolling through his own phone when mine buzzed on the coffee table. Without thinking, he reached over and picked it up. We'd always been comfortable with each other's phones, no secrets, no hidden passwords, nothing to hide. At least that's what I thought. The message notification showed my boss's name, David Mitchell. Jake glanced at it casually at first, probably expecting some work-related update about tomorrow's meeting or a deadline change. But then his entire expression shifted. The color drained from his face, and his hands started trembling as he held my phone. "Babe, can you come here for a second?" His voice was different. Hollow, like someone had just told him his entire family had died in a car crash. I turned off the stove and walked over, wiping my hands on a dish towel. "What's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost." Jake held up my phone, and I could see David's message preview on the lock screen. "Last night was incredible. I can't stop thinking about what you did to me in that hotel room. When can we do it again?" My stomach dropped so fast I thought I might throw up right there on our living room carpet. Because here's the thing, I had never, not once, been in any hotel room with my boss. I had never done anything inappropriate with David Mitchell. Hell, the man was pushing 60 and had the personality of wet cardboard. The idea of being intimate with him made my skin crawl. But Jake didn't know that. All Jake saw was a text message that looked like evidence of his wife having an affair with her boss. "I can explain," I started, but even as the words left my mouth, I realized how pathetic they sounded. Because how do you explain away something that looks so damning? How do you convince your husband that you're innocent, when the evidence is literally staring both of you in the face? What I didn't know was that this message wasn't just going to destroy my marriage. It was going to expose a web of lies, manipulation, and betrayal that went deeper than I ever could have imagined. Let me back up and give you some context about my life before that message destroyed everything. I'm Sarah, and at the time I was 29 years old, working as a marketing coordinator at a mid-sized advertising firm in downtown Chicago. Jake and I had been married for 3 years together for 8 total. We'd met in college, and honestly, it was one of those fairy tale relationships that made other people jealous. He was the sweet, reliable guy who brought me coffee every morning and never forgot our anniversary. I was the driven, ambitious woman who was climbing the corporate ladder, but still made time for date nights and weekend getaways. We lived in a cute little 2-bedroom apartment in Lincoln Park, had adopted a golden retriever named Benny, and were actively saving for a house in the suburbs. We talked about kids, about growing old together, about all those normal couple things that you discuss when you think you've found your person. My job was demanding but rewarding. I worked long hours, sometimes staying late for client presentations or traveling for conferences. Jake understood this about me. He'd always been supportive of my career ambitions. He worked in IT for a smaller company, had more regular hours, and often joked that he was the house husband, because he did most of the cooking and cleaning during my busy periods. David Mitchell had been my boss for about 2 years. He was the type of manager who was technically competent, but had zero personality. Married to his college sweetheart, father of twin daughters in high school, drove a sensible Honda Civic, and wore the same 3 rotating ties every week. He was professional fair, but incredibly boring. Our interactions were limited to work discussions, performance reviews, and the occasional company happy hour where he'd nurse one beer and leave early. I need you to understand this because it's important. There had never been even a hint of inappropriate behavior between David and me. No lingering glances, no personal conversations, no after-work drinks, nothing. He was my boss, I was his employee, and that was the extent of our relationship. But someone wanted Jake to think otherwise. The weeks leading up to that devastating Tuesday had been relatively normal. I'd been working on a big campaign for a new client, pulling some late nights at the office. Jake had been supportive, as always, bringing me dinner when I worked late and handling all the household stuff without complaint. We'd even talked about taking a vacation in the spring, maybe going to Italy or Greece, somewhere romantic and relaxing. Looking back now, I can see the small signs that something was wrong. Little things that didn't register at the time but make perfect sense in hindsight. Jake had been asking more questions about my work schedule. He'd started checking his phone more frequently, especially when I was around. A few times, I'd caught him watching me with this strange expression, not suspicious exactly, but like he was studying me, trying to figure something out. I'd brushed it off as work stress. His company had been going through some layoffs, and I assumed he was just anxious about job security. I should have paid more attention. The other thing I should have noticed was how my phone had been acting weird lately. Sometimes I'd find it in places I didn't remember leaving it. The battery seemed to drain faster than usual. A couple of times apps were open that I didn't recall using. But I was busy with work, distracted by deadlines and client meetings, so I didn't think much of it. That Tuesday started like any other day. I got up early, went for a quick run with Benny, showered, grabbed coffee with Jake, and headed to the office. It was a typical day of meetings, emails, and project updates. David and I had maybe 3 professional interactions, a brief status update on the campaign, a question about the budget, and a quick discussion about the timeline for client deliverables. Normal. Boring. Professional. I left work around 6:30, stopped at the grocery store to pick up ingredients for dinner, and came home to find Jake watching Netflix with Benny sprawled across his lap. Everything felt perfectly ordinary and comfortable, until my phone buzzed with that message that would change everything. I can explain, I said again, reaching for my phone, but Jake pulled it away. Explain what, Sarah? Explain how you've been screwing your boss behind my back. Explain how you've been lying to me for God knows how long. His voice was rising, and Benny jumped off the couch, sensing the tension in the room. Jake, please, just listen to me. I have never, and I mean never, done anything inappropriate with David. That message doesn't make any sense. I don't know why he would send something like that, but I swear to you, nothing happened. He unlocked my phone, he knew my passcode, just like I knew his, and started scrolling through my messages. I watched his face get darker and darker as he read. What about this one from last week? He held up the phone, showing me another message from David. I'm still sore from what you did to me. You're incredible. My blood ran cold. I had no memory of receiving that message. In fact, I was sure I'd never seen it before in my life. And this one from 2 weeks ago. Jake continued, his voice getting sharper. Thanks for the amazing night. My wife has no idea how lucky I am to have you. I felt like I was in some kind of nightmare. These messages were on my phone, in my message thread with David, but I had absolutely no memory of receiving them. More importantly, I had never responded to any of them. But as Jake scrolled through the conversation, I could see that there were responses, messages that appeared to be from me. I loved every second of it too. One of my supposed replies read, "Can't wait to feel you again. Your wife doesn't deserve you like I do," said another. I was going to be sick. These were not my words. I had never typed these messages, never sent them, never even thought them. But they were there in my phone, in my message history, looking for all the world like evidence of an affair. Jakey, I didn't send those messages. I don't know how they got there, but I didn't send them. You have to believe me. Right? He said sarcastically. Someone else was using your phone to have an affair with your boss. That's your explanation. I don't have an explanation yet, but I know I didn't do this. Look at me, Jake. Really look at me. Do you honestly think I would cheat on you? Do you think I would throw away everything we have for David Mitchell? He's 20 years older than me and has the charisma of a dead fish. Why would I risk our marriage for him? Jake stared at me for a long moment, and I could see him wavering. He knew me. He knew I wasn't the type of person who would have an affair. But the evidence was right there in front of him, undeniable and damning. Then how do you explain this? He scrolled to another message, this one from just 3 days ago. Hotel room 237 at the Marriott downtown. Can't wait to show you what I've been thinking about all week. My heart stopped. The Marriott downtown. 3 days ago, I had worked late on Wednesday night. I told Jake I was staying at the office until around 9 to finish the client presentation. But according to this message thread, I was supposed to be at a hotel with David Wednesday night. Jake said quietly, "You said you were working late. You came home around 10, said you'd grab dinner at that place near your office. You even brought me leftovers." I remembered that night clearly. I'd worked until about 8:30, then stopped at that little Thai place near the office and picked up dinner for both of us. I'd eaten with Jake, we'd watched an episode of our show, and we'd gone to bed. A completely normal evening, but these messages painted a different picture entirely. Jake, I was at the office. I can show you the keycard logs, the security footage, anything you need. I was not at any hotel. He kept scrolling, and with each message, I felt more and more helpless. The conversation went back months. Dozens of explicit messages, making plans for secret meetings, talking about hotel rooms and intimate encounters that had never happened. Someone had crafted an entire fake relationship between David and me, using my phone, my message thread, even my supposed writing style. Who else has access to your phone? Jake asked finally. No one. Just you and me, I leave it at my desk sometimes when I go to meetings, but... Bah! I trailed off as a horrible thought occurred to me. But what? There's this woman at work, Jessica. She sits in the cubicle next to mine. She's always been a little weird around me. Asking personal questions about our marriage, wanting to know what we do on weekends, stuff like that. I thought she was just being friendly, but... Jessica Reed. How had I not thought of her immediately? She was the office gossip. The one who always seemed to know everyone's business. She'd been working there for about a year. Ever since the company hired her as an administrative assistant. She was in her early 20s, blonde, and had this way of inserting herself into conversations where she didn't belong. But more importantly, she'd had multiple opportunities to access my phone. I frequently left it at my desk when I went to the bathroom or to meetings. She could have easily picked it up, installed some kind of spying app, or even just memorized my passcode by watching me type it in. You think this Jessica person is sending fake messages to your boss and making it look like they're from you? Jake's tone was skeptical, but I could hear just a hint of hope underneath the anger. I don't know, but it's possible. She definitely has access to my phone during the day, and she's always asking weird questions about you, about our marriage. Last week she asked if we were happy, if we ever fight, stuff that seemed way too personal for a casual work friendship. Jake was quiet for a long moment, still holding my phone, still looking at those devastating messages. There's one way to find out. He said finally. What? Call your boss. Right now, ask him about these messages. My stomach lurched. Jake, I can't. It's almost 8 o'clock on a Tuesday night. I can't just call David at home and ask him about explicit text messages. His wife might answer. Then this whole thing is bullshit, and you've been lying to me. I could see that I was losing him. The doubt was creeping back into his eyes, and I was running out of ways to prove my innocence. The evidence was overwhelming, and my explanation sounded increasingly desperate even to me. But I knew I had to try. Okay, I said. I'll call him. But I want you to listen to the entire conversation. I took my phone back from Jake's trembling hands and scrolled to David's contact information. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. This was either going to save my marriage or destroy it completely. David answered on the third ring. Sarah, is everything okay? It's kind of late. Hi David, I'm sorry to bother you at home, but something really strange has happened, and I need to ask you about it. There was a pause. What kind of strange? I took a deep breath. Have you been sending me text messages? Personal messages, I mean, not work-related stuff. Another pause, longer this time. No, of course not. Why would I send you personal messages? Sarah, what's going on? Jake was watching my face intently, and I could see him trying to read David's tone through the phone. Someone has been sending messages from your phone number to mine. Very personal, inappropriate messages. Messages that make it look like we're having some kind of affair. What? David's voice got louder, more alarmed. Sarah, I haven't sent you any messages outside of work stuff. And I would never send inappropriate messages to anyone, especially not an employee. My God, what kind of messages are you talking about? I described some of the tamer messages, watching Jake's expression change as he heard David's genuine confusion and alarm. This is insane. David said. I need to see these messages. Can you forward them to my personal email? And Sarah, we need to figure out who's doing this because this could destroy both of our careers, not to mention our marriages. That's when I knew for certain that David was innocent. The fear in his voice was real. He was just as much a victim of this manipulation as Jake and I were. But if David wasn't sending the messages, then who was? And how were they appearing to come from his phone number? After I hung up with David, Jake and I sat in silence for several minutes. The evidence of an affair was still there on my phone, but David's reaction had planted seeds of doubt about what we were seeing. So if your boss isn't sending these messages, Jake said slowly, then someone is making it look like he is. But how is that even possible? I'd been wondering the same thing. There are apps that can spoof phone numbers. Someone could be using David's number to send messages that look like they're coming from him. But they'd need access to my phone to create the fake conversation thread. Or they'd need to hack into your phone remotely. The thought sent chills down my spine. If someone had that level of access to my phone, what else had they been doing? What other messages had they sent? What personal information had they accessed? I need to check something, I said, grabbing my laptop from the kitchen counter. I've someone installed spyware on my phone. There might be a way to detect it. While I was running security scans and checking my phone's data usage, Jake was pacing around our living room like a caged animal. Every few minutes, he'd stop and look at me with this expression that broke my heart like he wanted to believe me, but couldn't quite bring himself to trust what I was saying. Sarah, he said finally, I need you to be completely honest with me. Is there anyone in your life who might want to hurt you? Anyone who might have a reason to destroy our marriage? I thought about it seriously. I wasn't the type of person who made enemies. I was professional at work, friendly with my neighbors, got along well with Jake's family and friends. I couldn't think of anyone who would go to these lengths to hurt me. The only person I can think of is Jessica from work, but this seems extreme even for office drama. Tell me more about her. I described Jessica's behavior over the past few months, the personal questions, the way she seemed to insert herself into my business, the odd comments about my marriage. As I talked, I started to remember other things that had seemed insignificant at the time. She was really interested in my phone, I said suddenly. She was always commenting on it, asking what kind it was, if I liked the case, stuff like that. And a few times I caught her looking at it when I thought she wasn't paying attention. What else? She asked me once if Jake and I ever looked at each other's phones. She said her boyfriend was really paranoid about phone privacy, and she wondered if that was normal in relationships. I told her that Jake and I had each other's passcodes and didn't hide anything. Jake stopped pacing, so she knew that I would see any messages that came to your phone. Yeah, she did. And she knew that I leave my phone at my desk when I go to meetings. She could have easily accessed it, installed some kind of app, or even just figured out my passcode. The pieces were starting to come together, but I still didn't understand the motive. Why would Jessica want to destroy my marriage? What did she gain from making Jake think I was having an affair? That's when my phone rang. David's name appeared on the screen, and Jake and I looked at each other nervously. Sarah, I've been thinking about what you told me, and I remembered something. David said without preamble. About 3 weeks ago, Jessica Reed asked me some strange questions about you. She wanted to know about your work schedule, If you ever worked late with me, if we traveled together for business. I thought it was odd at the time, but I figured she was just making conversation. My blood ran cold. What exactly did she ask? She asked if you and I had a good working relationship, if we ever socialized outside of work, if my wife knew how much time I spent with female employees. Really inappropriate questions that I shut down immediately. But Sarah, she seemed disappointed when I told her that our relationship was strictly professional. Disappointed how? Like she was hoping I'd say something different. Like she wanted there to be something inappropriate going on between us. After David hung up, Jake and I looked at each other with a mixture of relief and growing anger. We were starting to understand what had happened, but we still didn't know why. I need to confront her, I said. Tomorrow at work, I need to ask Jessica what the hell she thinks she's doing. No, Jake said firmly. If she's capable of this level of manipulation, confronting her directly could make things worse. We need proof first. He was right, but I felt so helpless. Someone had violated my privacy, manipulated my phone, and nearly destroyed my marriage, and I was supposed to just sit back and gather evidence. That's when Jake had an idea that changed everything. What if we set a trap? What do you mean? What if we give Jessica the opportunity to access your phone again, but this time we're ready for her? We could install our own monitoring software, set up a hidden camera at your desk, something to catch her in the act. It was risky, but it might be our only chance to get concrete proof of what Jessica was doing. We spent the rest of the evening researching phone monitoring apps and planning how to catch Jessica red-handed. But the next morning, when I got to work, Jessica wasn't at her desk. Her supervisor told me she'd called in sick. Same thing the day after that, and the day after that. By Friday, I was starting to panic. What if Jessica had realized that her plan wasn't working? What if she'd figured out that Jake and I had discovered the fake messages? What if she decided to escalate her harassment campaign? That afternoon, I got my answer in the worst possible way. I was in a client meeting when my personal phone started ringing. Jake's contact photo appeared on the screen, but I couldn't answer because I was presenting a campaign proposal. The phone rang again, and again. During a brief break in the presentation, I quickly texted Jakey, an important meeting, can't talk now. His response came immediately, call me no, it's about Jessica. My heart started racing. I excused myself from the meeting, telling my colleagues I had a family emergency, and called Jake back from the hallway. Jake, what's wrong? She showed up at our apartment building. What? Jessica. She's here in our lobby, asking the doorman about you. She told him she was your sister and that she needed to get into our apartment because of a family emergency. The doorman called me to verify. I felt like the floor was dropping out from under me. Jessica had escalated from digital harassment to actual stalking. She was at our home, trying to get into our private space. Where are you now? I'm in the lobby with the doorman. Jessica left when she realized he wasn't going to let her up without confirmation. But Jake, this is insane. She knows where we live. She was asking detailed questions about our schedules, when you usually come home, if we have security cameras. I'm leaving work right now. Don't go upstairs alone. Already thought of that. The doorman is going to escort me up and do a sweep of the apartment. We're also filing a police report. As I rushed out of my office building, my mind was racing. Jessica's behavior had crossed every possible line. Whatever her motivation was, she was clearly unstable and potentially dangerous. But what I discovered when I got home was worse than anything I could have imagined. Because Jessica hadn't just been trying to destroy my marriage. She'd been trying to replace me entirely. When I walked into our apartment, Jake was sitting at our kitchen table with a police officer and a stack of printed documents. His face was pale and his hands were shaking. Sarah, sit down, he said quietly. There's something you need to see. The police officer had been investigating Jessica's background after our complaint, and what they'd found was terrifying. Jessica Reed wasn't even her real name. Her actual name was Jennifer Walsh, and she had a history of identity theft, stalking, and harassment. But the worst part was what they'd found in her apartment when they arrested her. Photos of me. Hundreds of them, taken without my knowledge over the past several months. Pictures of me leaving our building, walking Benny, getting coffee with Jake, even sleeping through our bedroom window. She'd been stalking me for months, learning every detail of my life and routine. But it wasn't just photos. She had detailed notes about my marriage, my work schedule, my relationships with colleagues. She'd researched Jake's background, his job, his family. She'd even found out about our vacation plans and our hopes of buying a house. The police found fake identity documents with my name and photo. Credit cards that she'd applied for using my stolen information. A lease application for an apartment across town where she'd listed Jake as her husband. Jessica hadn't just been trying to destroy my marriage. She'd been planning to steal my entire life. The fake messages between David and me were just the first step. She wanted Jake to divorce me so she could swoop in and take my place. She'd been building a detailed profile of who I was so she could become me. It took months of therapy for Jake and me to work through the trauma of what Jessica had done to us. The violation of privacy, the manipulation, the knowledge that someone had been watching us and planning to destroy our lives. It changed us both. But we survived it. We're stronger now, more aware of digital security and personal safety. We moved to a new apartment with better security, changed all our passwords, and learned to trust each other again. Jessica is serving 3 years in prison for identity theft, stalking, and harassment. She'll be out eventually, but we have restraining orders and security measures in place. What would you do if someone tried to steal your entire identity and life? Have you ever had your trust shattered by digital manipulation? Share your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one, and your stories help me feel less alone in this crazy experience.